very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, it's midweek and a beautiful Wednesday morning. I'm Kairo Kikyodo.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And from Abuja, good morning. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, yes, indeed, the cases of COVID continue to rise. We do know that some lawmakers in Imo State, 13 of them now, after that first one, which they found out. So now they've got 14 who have tested positive. But still staying in Imo, it's interestingly another development right there where members of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners in the state staged a protest in the state capital over what they describe as a non-payment of pension arrears and entitlement. Well, yes, you can see the pensioners in their numbers there taken to the streets. And then, well, vehicular movement usually affected in some cases. But as you can see there, they're demanding the payment of their arrears, owed them since February 2020. Turns out that the chairman of that pension committee did say that the union had made several appeals, and this is always happens when you see them protest, and the kind of images that stick in people's mind happens to be when you see some of them in queue. There's been cases wherein some of them senior citizens unfortunately died in the queue while waiting, and some of them while waiting for their pensions, and you would have thought that by now this should have been confined to history. So it's a huge challenge. This is not what people want to see because there are different impressions that this can create. I mean, yes, they readily will tell you, well, if this is the case, if the system won't cater for me, people resort to self-help, and that is not what we want to see. So different developments really playing out there, and we think that no, this should not have been the case. We should know how to prioritize some of these things, and I wonder the reasons why the authorities will be given for not giving or paying them. But for whatever reason it is, will it even be tenable in the first place?
Big questions, especially when you see senior citizens having to protest. I mean, ideally, they should be at home. You know, they've worked for years, for decades in most cases. So they should be at home, you know, really enjoying watching sunrise daily this morning with a cup of tea, doing their exercise and what have you. So when you see them on the streets, not for exercise sakes, but to protest for what is due them, then it brings up a lot of concerns. I mean, you've heard that you can tell a lot about a country with the way it treats older people, the young and the women. You can tell a lot about a society that way. Yes, the government has said we're trying to clean up our payroll system. There's been a lot of issues in the past, so that's why we're having this delay. Interestingly, the NLC in the state is saying they're not a part of this protest, but one thing is sure, these people have not been paid. I don't think any senior citizen will come out and say have not been paid when they have been paid. So that is the issue here. So whatever it is, whatever the NLC is saying, whatever any other body is saying, what we need to do is pay these people. I mean, I could go on and on about how many times we have talked about this. This is not the first, second, maybe not the last, but this is a point in case, and we need to do better for our senior citizens. I imagine the people in government, imagine if your parents have not been paid or you don't send the allowances you send to them. Imagine what they go through or what they will be going through right now. So I think sometimes we need to put ourselves in the shoes of these elderly ones. Honestly, they deserve better.
I'm wondering what the role of the Pension Reform Act would have played in all of this. I don't think this is the time we should even be talking about this at all. This Pension Reform Act, was activated years ago, 2004, and it was there were people in the private sector who weren't getting pensions, and they said, let's have a contributory system where the company or the organization and the individuals contributing to this thing. What happened to the Pension Reform Act in all of this? What happened to who is the one that is supposed to do the needful? Because at the end of the day, I believe that the understanding that I have about the way the pension scheme works is that once you leave that organization, you don't have business with that organization. You have business with your pension managers. So if that wasn't activated for these senior citizens, it begs the question of the kind of commitment that people may want to have into building their nation. so to speak. This is, whether it's public service or private, sector, it is really, really troubling. The sector that we used to have such issues with many years ago was the railway corporation. That hasn't been happening in a while now. Maybe that is still happening, we don't even know. And these are the ones that we know in Imo State. How many of such scenarios are we having in various pockets of states all over Nigeria? So I'm just wondering, what happened to the Pension Reform Act such that it couldn't cover these people?
Well, they were saying that they needed to regularize their BVN, and there's so much irregularities, the same old stuff.
They were paying them salaries before they left service.
Yep.
There was no BVN then, and the BVN was not an issue. It's now when it's time to pay them their pension that there is an issue. Some people have some questions to answer. Mark?
Well, the question you've raised, I know that not every state, and most states didn't sign up to it. Some states did, but there was a huge controversy as to what age people should start contributing to that, contributory pension fund. So that there were some people who were way too old. The time they had left in service was not going to be sufficient enough for them to be able to get anything for the Pension Act. That's why at the federal level, the federal government set up PTAD as the Pension Transitional something Directorate. That body is the one that was set up to pay the people who were past a certain age to be contributing to that contributory fund for pension. So PTAD is supposed to exist until the last person who was registered as being too old, according to federal government guidelines, is paid his pension. The person finally, dies. That's how long PTAD is supposed to work for. But the other contributory, pension scheme is on for the people who were able to meet up with that particular age limit and contribute to the pension. But I do know that it caused a lot of controversy in the state. I don't know whether that's the situation now. But as Chairman did point out, this is not a very good thing for people who are currently in service to, watch. You see people who have retired and should be getting their pensions, easily, effortlessly, coming out on the streets in a time of a pandemic. I mean, the people who have been trying to protect, there have been elderly people. We said the vulnerable people are people above the age of 60 to 65. And even though, in many places, churches are beginning to open and mosques are opening, we've told this group of people, this category of people, please sit at home because it is not safe for you to still come out. And then they find themselves out in a situation like this because they have decided that, look, it's either we come out and voice what is happening to us or we die. 40 plus of our members have already died in circumstances that were less than ideal. So I sincerely hope that we don't see more of these types of protests. That when state governments are thinking of sending palliatives to vulnerable people, it's not just about sending them rice and beans and or whatnot. It's to pay them what is due them first. When you pay them what is due them first, at least that is statutory. Then you can now begin to think of, let us send them additional stuff because that might not be enough at this time. That's the only time that what you're giving them as a palliative might then make sense. But it was a very disheartening sight to see yesterday pensioners out on the streets of Imo State, demanding what's rightfully theirs. Anyway, we know that the government there is new and, it might take them some time to assess what is going on. But this is something that they ought to have, prioritized. I'm hoping that they will keep to their words and we will not have to see our senior citizens out on the road again, asking for what is due them. But as we did point out earlier, this is not a very good message to those who are still in service because, as Chairman did say, they could start resorting to self-help because they know that this could be their lot, when they finally leave service. And that's not a message any government wants to be sending down to people who are currently working for it. Gentlemen.
I'm wondering why, some states would choose and pick what law or what arrangement they want to line up with. This has been 20 years in action. Almost 20 years. 2024, it'll be 20 years in action. Let's say it took 2 years to activate the Pension Reform Act. That's how many years from now? 14 years after? These people definitely didn't look that they just left service 5 or 6 years ago. They left, quite some time ago. So what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, 13 lawmakers tested positive to COVID-19 yesterday in the States, and we had thought that everyone, social distance, wear your masks, try and be careful and be cautious, and then you see this sight. How do you deal with that?
Bank Road, Owerri, in the Imo State capital, is on lockdown, resulting in a major gridlock on account of pensioners protesting over non-payment of their arrears and entitlement.
We are begging for arms. We are begging for arms.
The inscription on this pensioners' placard sends a strong message to the government to act in the interest of the vulnerable elderly who serve the government in their most productive years. For them, they deserve better.
We have written to them severally, complaining of our plight, why we were not paid since the inception of this administration. We only paid January and February. You remember he came on board on January 14th, and he paid us January and February. By March, stories started coming out, and we were not paid up till now.
Although it was a challenge for security agencies to manage the situation, the Secretary to the state government assures the protesting pensioners that their arrears will be paid at the end of the week.
The government is promising before ending of this week, you will get your pensions. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate. When we came in, we met some problems as regards to pension and pensioners. There was no reliable data who is a pensioner and who is not. However, this is not a period of apportioning blames. We have come to solve problems.
According to the union, about 42 pensioners have lost their lives between February and June this year due to the lack of funds to take care of their medical needs, while some others are in the hospitals over one ailment or the other. All they want is for their pension arrears to be paid as soon as possible.
Welcome back. Take a look at the dailies today. Vanguard first. Edo PDP primary. Conflicting court orders over Obaseki is the lead here today. Port Harcourt court stops him. Benin court clears him. Lawyers, what are you doing this time? So there you go. That's the first of those riders. PDP drags Justice Obile before NJC. Says he's played into hands of politicians. Oh dear. If PDP is not careful with Edo crisis, no, I'll go again. If PDP is not careful with Edo, crisis in APC will be child's play. Wiki. INEC insists on June 27th deadline for primaries. Court didn't stop Obaseki from participating in PDP primary, party officials. Yeah. There were different materials circulating yesterday, but it turns out that the matter will be heard today, the one in Port Harcourt. So who knows how all of those, but it's revolving pendulum, as somebody once described it to me. Well, there you go. That is a big lead right there. We're still talking politics, and above this lead story, APC crisis. Two factions flex muscles over NEC meeting. Pro-Gyadom forces take emergency NEC meeting to Villa. To Villa? Yes, that's what the paper says here. Gyadom cannot convene NEC meeting, NWC declares. Says no faction in national leadership. Well, we'll check the meaning of the word faction. If two people are laying claim to a particular position, what is that?
Facts.
A fraction.
Oh, fraction. Not faction this time.
Honestly.
Right? So what do you call a fractional leader?
They use their bodmas.
Oh, okay. So there you go. But no matter what they do with words, the meanings are their meanings in English. Right? You can't change them. Yeah. So that's what it is. So and then police beef up security at APC headquarters because when the report they say the police are going to seal off the place.
Yeah.
Then much later the police come up with a statement saying no, we just went there to ensure that things go well. But is it semantics? I don't know. And then look at this one. Embassy demolition. Reps push for retaliation. Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo apologizes to Nigeria. That's the word. That's what you see right there. So, and then look at the back page. Vanguard Sports. NFF, LMC club owners decide on league's fate today. So it will be a big day after all in football, Nigerian football. But then flight restriction holds back Kalu. Oh, wow. Oh dear. Djokovic wife tests positive for COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
Sound on there. What's happening here? Liverpool bid what? £54 million for Koulibaly? I thought they said they didn't have money to buy Werner. And now you're bidding 50. Come on. Somebody. I'm trying to pull a wool over our eyes now. Are you? Well, that's Vanguard this morning.
You trust the teams will do anything, in preparation for the next season. But take a look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, the big story. PDP kicks off battle for Edo on shaky note. I'm not quite sure I like that word battle, but you know what? See what it is. Wike pulls out of reconciliation moves, accuses NWC of blackmail. No NWC members sponsored media publication against Rivers governor. That's coming from the PDP. The court restrains PDP, INEC from excluding Obaseki from primary. Yesterday it was the APC, today it's the PDP. You find more details on page 3. And speaking of that, the picture on the front page shows APC's national headquarters and shows security presence right there. And right under that, you see police take over APC Abuja office. But then the police saying, well, we deployed personnel there to maintain peace. Apparently, there was a possibility of breakdown of peace, right? We see that on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. More on the coming elections, but this time in Ondo State. Deputy Governor alleges impeachment plot as policemen invade assembly. They are on normal patrol. That's coming from the police again. Deputy Governor's aides sacked. Quite interesting one there because he said, okay, fine. You can be my personal staff. Return everything that belongs to the state government. But you know what? I'll still employ you on a personal note. You find more details on page 4. Really, there's a lot of headlines on the front page. Let me see if I can take this one. Protesters in EFCC office demand Lagos Speaker's probe. We will look into corruption allegation against Obasa. That's coming from the EFCC. And right on top of the nameplate, COVID-19, 13 Imo lawmakers test positive. Take a look at the riders, though. Anambra Assembly shut for 3 weeks over fear of coronavirus. Lagos seals of 5 private schools for flouting closure order. You wonder what was happening at those schools. He said this one, primary 6, JSS 3, SS3 students to now resume July 6th in Oyo. It was meant to be, I think, June the 29th, but apparently this has been postponed by a week in Oyo State. And Oyo government is saying 2.7 billion naira spent on COVID-19 so far. There's been a lot of questions about accountability. How much have you spent? What did you spend it on? So your state government is coming out to say, well, this is how much we have spent. We'll see if there's a breakdown to that effect. And we hope other states and other organs will do the same. Volunteers to get 15,000 naira hazard allowance from March. So I guess that puts some closure to that one. But quickly, sports news. Djokovic wife test positive for COVID-19. It was first 2 players, and then now Djokovic and his wife. Quite sad one, you might say. But they say sports people are healthy, so they're saying this might not affect much. But take a look at it at the back page of the Nigerian Tribune.
The Daily Trust newspaper leads with, police rescue 126 laborers at Kano rice factory. This was a little shocking. Over 300 of us were locked for nearly 3 months. Find out who said that on the inside pages. How we stormed the building, that's according to the police commissioner. Owners of company not our members, that's according to rice processors. The pictures you see there are of where they kept the people who were rescued, according to this story on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Find more details on the inside. It is very, very troubling. We've been having pockets of issues like this, from time to time. Stories on page 5. Right above that story, how Buhari whittled down governor's powers. Did he? Stories on page 6, find out why and how. With Masa Business, I trained my children and performed Hajj. Who said that? Stories on page 24. After President's warning, security chiefs plan new strategies. It'll be great to see what that is right under the major headline, the nameplate of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. That's the Daily Trust today.
Let's look at leadership for you quickly. Excuse me. Obaseki's governorship bid tears PDP apart. That's the lead story on the front page. Wike pulls out of reconciliation process, says NWC members are tax collectors. It's not true. That's according to the party. Court clears Edo governor for primaries. It's also on the front page. Gadom can't convene APC NEC. Ajimobi-led NWC wants. Why we sealed National Secretariat. That's according to the police. Litigations, conflicting orders, threats to Edo Ondo primaries. That's according to INEC. Yeah, that statement came out yesterday. INEC is concerned about all the court judgments flying right, middle, left, and center. Well, let us see how that goes. Looking just beneath the nameplates, single currency, echo in jeopardy. Francophone countries breaching agreements. That's according to the president, BMBs, right there on the front page. Undome stands surety for minor. It's also there on the front page. And at the bottom there, a number of stories there. Akufo-Addo calls PMB, apologizes over attack on Nigerian mission. Should that be the end of it? Should that quell everything that we feel about this? Because don't forget that only yesterday, the House of Representatives says our stance on this is not strong enough. And we have not been as stern as we ought to be on the matter. Looking here now, World Widows Day. Oh yes, there is such a day. Over 258 million surviving wives facing untold hardship. Widows should be included in COVID-19 response plan. That's according to the United Nations. And yes, we should give thoughts to what will happen to not just women, but people who have been married before and, are finding it quite difficult to cope as a result of their current status. Looking at the bottom, they have a number of other stories for you, but I'll leave you to do them yourself. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Well, take a look at The Guardian next. Nigeria may lose out on COVID-19 vaccine. Minister, others task government scientists on homegrown solutions. So that you find there. Tension as police seal, reopen APC secretariat. Why we sent our men there by force public relations officer. Court bars Gadom from role in APC affairs. Crisis in Ondo over deputy governor's defection worsens. Worry as Buhari endorses NEC meeting. Endorses is in parentheses now. So that's what you get there. So which one is it? The NEC meeting that's happening in the villa? Or that is said... which one is that now? Yeah, the one that you see the letter saying is going to hold in the villa. So I think that's what they're referring to here. Of course, you may need to just go ahead and then see that as well. Oh boy. Daily chaos at Ladipo Toyota bus stop along Apapa-Oshodi Expressway caused by snail speed work by high-tech construction company in Lagos yesterday. Oh my word. And the thing about some of this construction is, look, there will always be questions as to how they carry them out, if they take all of those considerations. If they do, why isn't it evident? Well, look at the back page. No decision has been taken on 2019-2020 season, says NFF. PPG system was best possible option, and that's point per game. So, LMC, who knows what they will eventually come up with here. But there you go. That is it. We'll look at some of the dailies this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Well, we're starting off with security situation this morning, and ever since those meetings, we'll find out how they intend to proceed. Mr. Mikey Joffo joins us from Abuja, former director with the DSS, and then Alfred Ononugu, forensic security consultant, joining us via Skype. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today on the program. Mr. Joffo, let me start with you. Well, yes, we understand the Chief of Defense Staff did hold a meeting yesterday. They're planning a new strategy with some of the service chiefs, and ever since the president, they said, look, not happy with what is going on. This has always been a huge concern to a lot of people. With this planned new strategy, well, the expectation is they hope they should get results. Do you see that happening?
Well, it's our hope that it does happen. We expect results from his directive. But I'm not very impressed with the president's speech or directives. Because if you recall, around last year, just ahead of the inauguration, or before the election rather, the president said that he couldn't, when there was so much pressure for him to change the service chiefs, he did say that he cannot change the service chiefs under emergency. That was before the election. And a lot of interest groups have expressed concerns. The National Assembly, the Senate early this year in January, called for the removal of the service chiefs. And governors have also called for rejigging of our security architecture. Everybody, because of the rising insecurity in the country, have been calling for the removal of the security chiefs. You also recall that last year when I was here, I did say that it's only the president that appointed the service chiefs. He's the only person that can remove them because he has access to their report. He is the only person who can assess them. He's the only person who appointed them. So coming out to say that he's giving them more time is, to me, it's disappointing because I feel that it's time for the service chiefs to go for many reasons. Their younger officers are retiring and they are still at the helm of affairs. It's undermining the capacity, the integrity of the service personnel. Their morale is low, and they are not actually walking the talk. So and more to it, the president didn't give a timeline within which he said, I give you from now to 2 months or 3 months to achieve results. And even after the warning that he said that their best was not good enough, we have continued to see rising wave of attacks. Nigerians are very, very insecure now, and I'm not impressed by that. I thought with the May 29 celebration, marking his 1 year, he would have taken some major steps to rejig the security architecture.
Well, you know, the thing about some of this is how much lies in the change of the service chiefs, because there are some others who think that there just appears to be a fundamental problem beyond the positions of the service chiefs.
Yeah, you are very right. Changing the service chiefs might not necessarily bring the necessary change we need. But if you continue to do the same thing, same way, and expect different results, then your head must be examined. These people have been in the helm of affairs. The president acknowledged they have done their best, and their best is not good enough. So what do? Keep holding on to them. And if you look at the situation, the Inspector General of Police, for instance, and the DGSSS, you recall that there were changes. And when there was change in leadership, there was obvious change in the approaches and techniques. So you can't continue to keep the same people for over 5 years and the younger ones are retired and expect results from them. The younger officers will even be undermining them. You've seen videos going viral younger officers carrying virtually mutiny, criticizing the leadership of the services, and that's not good enough for us. I think it's time the president took urgent decisions to address this issue, even though it's not going to completely address the issue of the insecurity in the country, but there need to be change in leadership.
Perhaps the challenge here is what exactly are the issues we are dealing with? Are we, because most of the time when we talk about security, we seem to talk about maybe just territorial security or physical security. But then in looking at some of the conversations that have been had about what is responsible for this, we've had several people say we need to deal with unemployment, we need to find a way to create jobs, we need to deal with economic insecurity. Do you see an end to physical or territorial insecurity without dealing with the economic security that is at the behest of all of this?
Well, you see, as I was advancing before you switched over to the other man, the other guest, I said that changing the leadership of the security agencies alone is not going to solve the problem. We have a lot of challenges. The government needs to provide basic amenities, which is giving rise to criminality. A lot of people are unemployed, people who are ordinarily not criminals. Why not justifying it? Go into crime to sustain themselves. You can see the rising cases of, because of this lockdown, the rising cases of rape, kidnapping, killings, and government needs to come out to address some of those basic issues, like you rightly pointed out. The economic times are very hard, and people must survive. Why not justifying criminality? Because there's no way you can, but if all those basic amenities are provided, maybe it will help in reducing the incidences of criminality in the country. And again, you see, like the NSA pointed out, speaking on behalf of the president, there are so many loyalties and divisions. You recall when he said that there need to be synergy among the services. There are many tendencies and loyalties, lines among the various security agencies. And they pledge their loyalty not to the country, but to their appointers. Ordinarily, president is supposed to be appointed, but you recall the leaked letter from the National Security Advisor complaining of certain issues. Some of the service chiefs not reporting to the NSA, reporting to the chief of staff, and so this is creating problems. So it will give us problem. That's what I'm saying, that there's need to change the leadership who are neutral, not divided, who don't have divided loyalties to individuals rather than the country and their services. So it's some of these challenges we are facing.
Well, add to that, that conversation, you've referenced the meeting with the NSA, but we'll come to that maybe. But then you remember that last year, that national security strategy was launched. And of course, the issue has been that of implementation. Part of what was contained in that document is that Nigeria's security strategy was going to be more focused on the people as opposed to the state. Do you see that playing out at all over the past more than a year now?
The reasons are obvious. The economy is bad. So if you are but people are just ordinarily worried because security is the foundation of all development. If you talk of whether there's any change in implementation of that strategy, I have not seen it. Even though the central bank is coming up with some palliatives on this lockdown, giving loans to agricultural loans to farmers, but it's a drop in the ocean. It's not reaching the desired people. And look at the money donated. Nobody is talking. Nobody's accounting for these monies, for the palliatives donated by individuals, who have played more roles than government itself. So these are real the challenges we are facing, and they must be addressed. Otherwise, we are going to have harder times. God forbid.
But, God forbid indeed, but then we have to do our part. We have to play our own role in all of these. And part of the roles is to recognize that most of these insecurity issues are local. Local governments, state governments, and all of that. Do you see any role for them in all of these? Do you see any effect to whatever it is that the states ought to do?
Exactly. The present policing structure in Nigeria is structurally defective. By that, I mean, I have advocated and I expected the National Assembly to have taken the initiative in sponsoring bills to create state police. If we don't have this security going down to the grassroots, we have a central control from the center, from Abuja. It's very, very ineffective. And times have proved that. You look at the issue of when the rising wave in crime in the southwest, they came up with this issue of Amoteku. Even though they are not fully operational now, it has reduced to some extent the level of criminality within that area. And other geopolitical zones are also taking the same initiative. So we need to restructure our security architecture if we must make progress by creation of this security state police, looking at the local government level, creating of vigilantes to support the police. Nobody is saying that police is not, but as police is presently constituted, there's no way we can check the crime that is facing us now.
Right. Now, still going back to that statement the president made, well, that the NSA said the president made during that meeting with the service chief, saying that, well, they're doing their best, but their best is not good enough. Now, that was made days ago, and a lot of people were watching to see what will follow. Was that a vote of no confidence from the president regarding the service chiefs? Did that mean they were going to go? I mean, you touched on that earlier on, saying that that will not solve the whole problem. So our security situation, because we've talked about the leadership, you've talked about the officers, you've talked about the economic angle. So it seems as though, obviously, this is not just at their table. When we want to solve this, really, is this something we should do just focusing at the security angle, or we need to have like a whole new type of conversation, a well-rounded conversation where everybody comes on board and we say, these are the angles we have really failed?
Conversation must be holistic. All stakeholders, all interest groups must be involved. And I look at a situation where perhaps the federal government at this level can convene a national security summit to discuss our challenges and see how we can move forward. Because there's no way Nigeria can continue to exist in this very situation we have. And another major problem is that our security is politicized. People are not telling the truth. And it is disturbing that the military will continue to tell us that today we have 600 people killed, 1,000 killed, no pictorials to show us the casualties. And I ask, how many are these Boko Haram people that are being killed every day and yet they continue to attack villages? It's disturbing. And that's why I said that there's need to rejig the leadership of the security. I don't have anything against them. Some of them are my friends. If they cannot, on their honor, voluntarily throw in the towel to allow for this, then the president should do the needful by appointing new service chiefs.
You know, regarding the pictures that you talked about having some form of evidence in court, there are those who think that this should not be a media war, as it were. This is not, I think the term, this is not a match of football or cricket where you showcase everything happening. So what is the component, what is the, well, how important is the component you have mentioned, especially because they say that during war, you keep your cards close to your chest. So how much of an effect will that have?
You see, that in itself, you know, it's uncivilized for you to begin to show all those pictures. But I tell you that it also has its own psychological effect on the terrorists, if actually they are being killed, with this advent of social media, is there anything that is hidden anymore? Nothing is hidden. People can even, the military can leak it and disclaim that they were not responsible for it. But every day you hear 1,000, how are they buried? How do you account for those people that are buried?
Mr.
But
Jaffa,
my worry is not the number of people that are killed daily.
Yeah. What
It's
is
not
your
the
worry?
number of
What
people
do you
that
think
are
is the
being
missing
killed,
link?
But that the
Did you hear me?
no.
What do you think is the missing link? You say there seems to be some gap within the figures being reported and why Boko Haram is still attacking people.
I doubt the figures being released that are being killed, because if the number is anything to go by, then there should be a reduction in attacks in the villages, especially in the northeast and northwest. But the more they claim they are killed, the more these people dare and attack villages. So I have my doubts on the figures being released, and that's why I say that it's political. I don't want us to also politicize our security. Let us tell ourselves the truth.
How do you suggest we or the authorities engage, for instance, youths who are protesting in Katsina about that killing? Because some of the information coming through in terms of how the killings are organized raises a lot of concerns. But apparently the youths have had up to here, and then they had to hit the street to the protest. How do you suggest they engage with them?
Well, you see, that it's just starting, because a situation will come where people will go to the street, because the primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people as enshrined in our constitution. But when government has failed to provide, a situation will come, people will embark on self-help, which will even be more problematic for us. The society will be at the receiving end, because the youths or the people demonstrating, you've had the statement from the Northern elders, you had condemning the security situation. That's why I said that there's need for a national security summit, for all interest groups to be invited and discuss the way forward. If we don't do that, and people resort to self-help, the society is going to fail, because it's the government officials that are going to be attacked, while the insurgents and the criminals will continue to attack the society.
You
So
know,
it's a problem.
there will always
It's a
be
multi-dimensional problem that requires multi-dimensional solutions.
There'll always be that question as to what new thing do we expect from this security summit that they don't know already? It's just to implement.
Well, you see, Nigeria is a country where people will talk. At times, people ask me, why do you still go to TV to talk? You have said everything. But let us continue to re-emphasize the need for us to come together. They have the strategy, like you pointed out. Is it being implemented? If it's not implemented, why is it still why is it not implemented? All these are politics, and it's not good for us. This country belongs to all of us, and we must do something to salvage this country, because the country is drifting to the precipice, and it's unfortunate.
You have said it that a number of people have been on your case asking, why do you still keep talking about the same thing over and over again? And we just heard that the the defense chiefs met yesterday to deliberate on new strategies. Are you having any hopes, of something different, of anything different, at all? Perhaps, because you have also talked about the over-centralization of our security apparatus. Do you think there is a need for constitutional review so that we can decentralize our security apparatus?
That before, I said that earlier. There's need to restructure our security. I said the way our security is structured now can never, ever be effective. You see military operating in virtually all the states. It's not supposed to be. And we have challenges in the northeast. Northwest, people are attacking. Well, for their meeting, I don't know what they intend to discuss or the strategies they want to adopt. All Nigerians need, and myself in particular, all we need is result. There must be a change for the better, because Nigerians are very, very insecure and feel very unsafe now.
The president over and over again had called for collaboration at various levels, and even in his recent speech, he talked about the states calling up their local intelligence assets. Do you think that is something that will be useful, given that insecurity is local?
Of course. You see, if, like I said, the example I gave in the Southwest, you can see that even though they are not fully operational now, the main mention of it that they are structured in that way, and the show of strength with their vehicles and everything, these headers and terrorists abandoned that place and drifted to the south, and that's why we have an increase in south now. The next thing, they move to southeast. So as long as we continue to centralize our security architecture, we are going to continue to
Mr.
have
Nonugbo,
problems. So
we've got you back on the line. I mean, we lost you before. Could you go ahead and make the point where you disagreed? I beg your pardon, you shared the same view, but don't agree with how, or not impressed with how the service chiefs are going about it. What points were you going to make?
First of all, thank you for getting me back on. My challenge with the arrangement of the positioning of the service chiefs is, first of all, this is our country. The manner and process also that produces these service chiefs could be one of the challenges we've not been able to address. We don't give an assignment to someone whose professional antecedent does not match the responsibilities that is required to be addressed. I have a problem also if you follow the trend of promotions and engagement in some of our services. It's not following the standard operational procedures laid down by the services. And this has created a lot of issues and affected the quality and content of deliveries coming from our services. So I feel that the service chiefs, sincerely, might not be, they are giving their best. We cannot throw them out. They are giving their best. But if you look inwards and if we take care of certain things that has become appendages to this job, we might be able to get more competent people to engage. So I'm of the view, frankly, that the system should be restructured and some of the people who are presently occupying these seats should give way.
All right, Mr. Ononugbo, we'll be back on this matter for a few more minutes, so please hang on. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's our concluding moments now, focusing on security. Well, Mr. Ononugbo, part of the meeting that the Chief of Defense Staff had highlighted the fact that, in their words, they wanted to enhance the existing synergy between security agencies, that's the interagency cooperation. But there's been several questions about that before now. What would be your impression concerning that particular item? Mr. Ononugbo, can you hear me first? Let's check that again.
Yes, I just take it a little more. I had part of it, but if you could take it again, I'll appreciate that.
Okay, I was just asking about the part of the meeting, part of the issues that were focused on with the Chief of Defense Staff, as General Nenche did highlight, is that they wanted to enhance the existing synergy between interagencies. So about interagency cooperation, several people have alluded to rivalry in that regard. How much of a concern is that to you?
Well, it is, because their role is majorly risk management and the risk management, the level of threat that Nigeria is presently exposed to requires a thorough and well-thought-out strategy to be able to de-escalate the situation. However, there are several underlying factors that are potentially undermining that. One is the morale of the rank and file. Also, secondly, the mode of engagement. Then thirdly is the moral issues involved in the entire setup. The morale of the rank and file, if you walk around and they are free to speak with you, you will find that a good number of them have left the services in their hearts. They are not finding a future, they are not fulfilled. And coupled with the fact that there is very high level of unemployment in the country, most people are enlisted in these services just to find something to eat, not with the understanding and aspiration to pursue a career and serve the nation. The second part being the fact that the different services have found it difficult to come together, probably because of the incentives derivable. I think a lot of them have been so politicized that they've forgotten their primary duties as security agencies and risk managers for the nation. So these are issues. And the moral aspect of it is the fact that a greater percentage of our personnel have not found a future and acceptance in the service. I'm being careful because this is a public platform, but there's a lot of ethnic sentiment in the service. There's a lot of discriminations. Those who are graduates, a lot of them are graduates. They are not fitting into where they are supposed to be because of the structures of the services and the quota system also being used in the service. In my mind, patriotism should be the platform on which the service to the nation is built. Secondly, these men should be properly motivated. The income, the salary, or the remuneration of most of these servicemen is nothing to write home about. These are little motivations. So if they are going to bring a whole lot of disenchanted people together to do one assignment, that's a disaster in the making. So the welfare of our servicemen should be thoroughly addressed. They should be given a sense of pride in the job they are doing so they can deliver better and take it as, look, I have to give my life for this cause because they've given me life, you know. And like I said initially, the process that produces the service chiefs should be professional. It should be based on merit. And that will give the system confidence. When the right man is on the right seat, you will trust his judgment. You will gladly follow his leadership. And that's not the case in some instances.
Mr. Onanuga, you've mentioned a significant number of issues, and one of them you took right out of my mouth, and that is the issue of salaries. I'm just wondering, I mean, salaries means funding. How significant is the funding issue in terms of our security, the security issues we are having in Nigeria, whether at the federal level or the state level or the local government? How significant is the funding problem?
The funding is, I hope you're hearing me. I can say without missing words, the funding is a very serious concern. I'll just give you an instance. I took a trip for an emergency assignment out of Lagos, and I counted about 120 roadblocks. And on each roadblock, the drivers were made to pay 500 naira. I just followed the click just now. And you could imagine if people were paid well, if they were given a sense of fulfillment in their jobs, they will bring it to the way they treat Nigerians. They will bring it to the way they, do their jobs. But people's concern is about how to survive, how to make their lives, to make their livelihoods. So this is a serious concern. So we should look at the structure of remuneration of the services. Are these people being paid measurably with the kind of assignments or jobs that they are doing? It's a concern. If people, some of the policemen, for instance, are orderlies to billionaires, and if their take home is less than 100,000, and they are managing a risk of estimated at over 2-point-something billion, and they are putting their lives on the risk, they hardly find enough money to pay their school fees. They gradually transfer their service to the VIP instead of the government. So they cease to be public officers. They become entrepreneurs using the state paraphernalia to serve an individual. And this is common. So we really need to review the take-home, the remuneration and welfare of our service men and women. It's very abysmally poor. It's heartbreaking. When you go to some places, you go to police stations, they sleep on the floor. These are family men. They sleep anywhere. No adequate provision in their barracks. In a room, you find 10 people in one room, just because the father is a personnel or the woman is a personnel. So we need to look at the welfare of our servicemen. If we don't give them a sense of belonging, if we don't make them to feel like they are doing a job they should be proud of, it will not translate to the attitude they show to Nigerians. And they cannot carry on, hoping for nothing. And at the end of the service, they become beggars. Everybody wants to grow in life and, go to the next step of his life. At retirement, you'll be proud you served your country, and you'll be proud of the country you served. So these are things we should look at. We should revisit our values. The patriotic structure of the nation has been eaten into by politics, ethnicity, and even religion. These three things are killing the entire nation and killing every structure of service delivery in the land. So they have to be addressed, and I pray that those who are concerned should take drastic actions. If you go to some service days, you find a large mosque, a large church, and people, you'll be wondering, are these people here to play religion or to manage risk? You see them, they are more political than politicians. So the service have lost its traditional values, and it should be quickly addressed.
Then, Mr. Alfred Ononugo, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this morning. Well, Mr. Joffor, before the security summit, the one you propose, if at all is going to happen, because you never know these days, what would you like to see happen immediately? Since the service chiefs are still there, they're meeting to see how they can come up with new strategies, as they say.
Well, let's wait for them. But for now, I believe that the president should put a timeline in conjunction with the NSA for them to perform, or just leave the scene for other people to come and try their luck. They have tried their best. I have nothing against them. Some of them are personal friends, but I think they have actually overstayed. They need to go so that other hands will be tried. Not only that, career progression, like Alfred said, career progression is now stunted. People are not growing, and people are retiring under you. How would you feel? You are the head of the family, your younger ones are dying, and you are there claiming leadership. It's not right. So I think we need to do some re-strategizing to achieve results.
All right, then thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there. We need to go ourselves here for the segment, that is. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's turn our attention to some politics now. Mr. Don Pedro Baseki joins us from our studios in Benin. He's the president of Midwest Movement. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, lots of things are also happening within the PDP. Today, there will be a court case that they will be attending to in Port Harcourt. There is another one that came through yesterday. So, I don't know if they've described theirs as well as a storm in a teacup, as some members of the APC described theirs yesterday. But speaking about what is playing out within the PDP, many expected that the governor, having crossed over, they had all of that sorted. But it turns out, from what we've seen and reading, it's not exactly that straightforward. So, okay, well, I understand he can't hear us as of yet, so we'll see how we can sort that out. Well, I was just trying to ask him eventually to, why did he choose Midwest Movement as president of Midwest Movement? What has he got with that? But yeah, politics is politics, so he'll be, hopefully when we sort that out, he'll be speaking to what is playing out. So apparently, it's not as clear.
Oh, yeah.
As any people would have thought.
Because you see, there are different arenas now. I mean, if I can use that term. So there's what's happening in the political parties, you know, the usual politicking, factions or fractions, as the case may be. So there's that. And then there's, you know, the usual build-up to the main election, which is between the political parties. Definitely, INEC is overseeing that one. But another arena where this is happening is at the courts. So basically, it is widened. So you can't just rely on what's happening in the party, you know, the usual campaigning and then what will happen at the elections to get the outcome of the election at this point. You also have to factor in the courts. And I don't think this was the plan originally when we were, you know, trying to build this democratic process. It was not meant to be that the court will also be a major arena where we play our politics in court.
Or the court becomes the next INEC, if you like, something like
Well,
that.
look, if they take cases to court, what should the court do?
Exactly. I mean, one can't really lay this at the foot of the judiciary or at the feet of the judiciary, as it were. I mean, judiciary has to do what they have to do, you know. But you know, in all of these, the courts don't only concern the judgments. The courts don't only concern the political parties, don't only concern the candidates. It also concerns INEC, which is why they released that report yesterday. And there's something very, very valuable that INEC mentioned in that release, which is the fact that any disruption in our arrangement comes at very high costs. And I don't know if politicians pay attention to that.
Well, the thing about that, look, INEC, it's usually there to observe. So when people say, well, they monitor, they do all of those things, it doesn't validate whatever process because they're just fulfilling their role as just observe what is going on.
But if these continue beyond the time
Which of
that these whole...
The PDP or the APC?
What's the difference right now? I mean, some people would ask the question because,
Clearly stated, PDP, APC.
Look at what is
APC
happening.
have got their candidate.
Look at what is happening.
PDP is going to hold primaries
Look at the
tomorrow.
things that
flipped,
Governor Wike said yesterday.
it.
Well, what's the difference? That's what some people are saying right now. Because, I mean, why would you move from one political party to another political party if the ideologies were significantly different? You know, so,
But at least there are two political parties.
Well, actually, there are more than two. INEC said about 15 of them, you know, indicated interest.
I mean concerning the APC and the PDP. Yeah. So,
you know, but even at that, I mean, look at what is happening in the PDP now as a result of one person's movement. But, you know, in all of this, for me, the main issue is the people. How are the people served? How are the people factored into all of these conversations? It hasn't gotten to that stage yet. It is at that stage.
No, this is the primaries, the party primaries. The people you're referring to here, are they the party members or are you talking about the electorate?
The party primaries involves people who are in the political space.
That's a different set of people.
I agree.
The most important people.
I agree. You talk often about our leadership recruitment process. It starts at that level.
Yep.
It starts at the level of the political parties. Who are the people playing? So if the people playing the politics at the party levels are not the people that should be there, we have a problem with the leadership selection process.
Yeah, but it's up to the people then, the electorate now, to then say, listen, having seen what was playing out in all the political parties, because right now it's not even clear whether or not it's going to be the PDP or the APC. It could be another party that will have 2,000 votes that will clinch it in Edo State. You never can tell.
That's when the courts now come in.
Oh my God, not again.
What if the courts come
Why
in?
not? They're an important party in the democracy.
Oh, yeah. And you know, that statement from INEC saying that, oh, great. You know what? Let's just go back to our Benin studio where we have...
Don Pedro Basiki, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's get him back. Mr. Basiki, thank you for joining us this morning. Well, as it is now, your namesake in the PDP, or it's not exactly clear for him. What do you see happening at the end of the day?
Nothing will happen. You see, you were talking about leadership selection process. And I think that what is playing out in Benin is a reset button for democracy in Nigeria, where people no longer want to sit back, fold their arms, and let others ride roughshod over what people really need. So I don't think the courts will step outside of the purviews of the Electoral Act, neither will they step out of the purviews of the election, of the Constitution, which is the ground norm for the country. I think what is playing out in Benin is a test case, a litmus test for our democracy. It's a watershed. And if you look at all the court cases, I actually fear more for the APC than I do for the PDP. If you look at it clearly, you know, unfortunately, a couple of days ago, there was a misrepresentation in the suit, in the motion ex parte, filed by one of the aspirants. And what was written, what came out in the media was a total negation of what the judge actually said. The judge granted accelerated hearing, which I know is taking place sometime today. And by that, it means they will hear it today and they will decide today. So there is no court injunction stopping the PDP for now. But the APC's own, I think that is where the arithmetic you are talking about, where the courts might just come in, might really have a role to play. Because as a last count, they had 37 court cases involving the APC, the former chairman or suspended chairman, all regarding Edo elections. So I don't feel uncomfortable when people go to the courts to try to interpret our laws, rather than people lock themselves behind the sanctuary of locked doors and just fret away or legislate away based on their personal whim and caprice the future of the larger majority. So I'm not scared for my people. I think my people are standing to reroute the entire democracy process for Nigeria. And September 19th at the elections, maybe we'll just have a new seismic paradigm shift. That is my very considered opinion.
The truth is, if the roles were switched, a member of the APC will also say, well, it's not a big deal. The fact that there are court cases just means they're being democratic. But, you know, we've seen the progression, the fact that, yes, the governor moved into the PDP. A lot of people said, well, you can't just come step over us. We've been here for years also, and that's why some people went to court. So if you say that this is not a big issue, I wonder how you'll also factor in the statements made by the governor of Rivers State, who we know is a major stakeholder in your party. So looking at those issues, do you still think that all is well in the PDP?
I think all is well in the PDP. You said my namesake, actually my elder brother, just switched. And everybody knows, we all know, is in the public domain, all the factors that led to a switching. I don't know the statement you are talking about, the governor of Rivers State, but I know that, of course, there will be rancor, there will be some form of uncomfortability regarding the movement of the governor into the PDP. But I also know, as of yesterday night, outside of just one person who went to court, and I think there is a huge negotiations and talking to going on, every other aspirant has come to settle. And I hear, and I think that will be what will be glory to all Edo indigenes, that almost all the aspirants might just enter the same, it's tomorrow, the same vehicle and drive into the venue. That is why I feel that it will be a seismic paradigm shift. You know, let me quote Jonathan. The ambition of any politician is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. And that is what we want to also prove in Edo State. And the movement of the governor to the PDP, to another party, in spite of the rancorous background that gave birth to his movement, may just actually be a paradigm shift. It's going to be a lot of noise. Let me quote Shakespeare. No, there's no need for Shakespeare today. But I'm very sure that today,
Well,
in the
Mr.
next couple of
Obaseki,
hours, within the next...
just hang on a minute. We'll come back to this and then get some more perspective from you in a moment. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Let's conclude with Mr. Don Pedro Obaseki in our Benin studios. Well, as it is now, there are court cases that both parties will be battling with. For those who are aggrieved within the PDP, do you see at the end of the day that, well, they will be able to sort this out and not ensure that, look, they're determined to be the spanner in the works?
Well, I believe that the utmost mobility of the Edo people will be paramount in the consideration of all the aspirants, those going to court and those who seem to be aggrieved. If the people, because we are on the streets, if you take the pulse of the people, you might just be backing on a wrong horse if you decide to go on a one-man goose chase and grandstanding, if it is about the people. But however, I know, they say loneliness is young, ambitious ladder. So, and you cannot stop anybody from being ambitious. But if it is about the people, I think from what is on ground here in Edo State today, taking the political barometer into consideration, it will not be to the singular goodwill of any of the aspirants, including the governor, to take this out of cosmic balance. I think, taking into consideration that Edo people from Okpela to Ologbo, from the Edo North to Edo South, almost always have the interest of the larger majority at heart. If that is, I think I don't have to be a Nostradamus to say within the next 24 hours, there will be a rapprochement that will change the political landscape going forward. My advice to everybody involved is, no matter the cocktails, no matter the fights, every war ends, albeit on a negotiating table. And I think that is what is going to play out finally. Because if we just have the governor comes in, it's just all smooth at this moment, I would think there may be something towards the end that may be a clog in the progress. But right now, all the cards are on the table. I have read the PDP constitution. I have read the constitution of Nigeria. I know the electoral law. I know the laws of this country. And I don't see anything, particularly where it concerns the PDP, where there will be a huge
I guess
conflagration. Absolutely.
I guess we'll have to watch and see then.
That can stop the process.
All right. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there. Well, that is not the only view that we will be getting about this matter. We do have Mrs. Julie Odigio here with us, a member of the Edo professionals. Good morning and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning to you too.
What do Edo professionals think of what's going on?
Well, Governor Obaseki is an Edo professional. And for many years, well, as you probably know, he advised Oshomole for 7.5 years. But prior to that, he was a founding member of the Edo Professionals Group. And that group was set up basically to offer pro bono advice, support, if you like, input to our past administrations. We won some and we lost a few. Edo professionals feel that we're getting somewhere.
But having seen the way it's going on now, do they still think, because I mean, there are some politicians, when you talk to them, they say, listen, I'm a professional in politics. I'm not an outright politician. They try to make that distinction. So do they think that getting somewhere in the sense that you're making inroads into this, or wait a minute, as professionals, we don't have it all figured yet compared to mainstream politicians in the state?
Well, it's a sad dichotomy because I feel and we feel very strongly that politics should be a profession with professional standards, professional morality, professional ethics, and we're clearly not there yet. But it's a journey. I mean, the wedding day is not the marriage. And so I think we're moving towards democracy. I think we've got all the, if you like, components in place in terms of a constitution, elections, and the whole cycle in between. That does not mean that we are a well-established democracy yet.
What's missing?
I think full engagement of the people in between elections. And I think also the recognition by politicians that you can't just, pull the people out of a hat like a rabbit on election day and then discard them the next day. I think that it's everybody taking responsibility for the republic.
And that I think that the people element is something that's been an issue over the years. We're 21 years into the Fourth Republic, and you see we are still inching towards democracy.
Ancient. You got that right.
So how do the people factor in all of this? Because to a large extent, when we talk about democracy, many people look at politicians and political parties. Very few, if any, look at the people. That's an issue.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the Greek idiot, tribal man, citizen. And the idiot is not the fool, but the guy who, his middle name is I, me, and myself. Okay, it's all about him. He's self-centered. He's selfish. He has no civic awareness, no civic consciousness. So that's the guy who, if he does get involved at all, is likely to be a despot. Then you've got the tribesman, who cannot see beyond his community, beyond his immediate interest and his community and interest group. And this is the guy who, his God is his tribe and his religion is tribalism, right? And all he cares about is fight to win at all costs. He understands rights, but he doesn't understand obligations. And then the Greek tell us about the ideal man, the citizen. And that, I think, is the direction that we need to go in. The person who understands the need for society, the need to give, and therefore, from that giving, you are able to take because everybody's giving. This is the guy who, and gal, who is very conscious, not only of rights, but also of obligations, who understands that there's a civic responsibility before you get to civilization. And I think that's the journey we're on. It's a trajectory. And every now and again, we slip a little bit backwards and then we take a leap forward. And I think what's happening in Edo State now, just to repeat what Don has been saying, is that we are in the middle of this transitional process. I'm a lawyer, so I'm not afraid of courts. So, you can take to court from now till the cows come home. Hey, bring it on, it's fine. And I think we need the courts to enunciate. I think we should rely on the courts to clarify, to define. And then we go back to maybe a drawing room or a dining room or a boardroom.
Okay.
But it's a continuous process.
Speaking about the courts, pardon me, there's this misconception. Well, I don't know if it's to call it a misconception, but they are of this impression that the courts seems to be playing a role in muddling the waters, because there's a judgment yesterday saying, well, yes, don't prevent, I think, the governor from participating in the primaries in the state. There's another one which they'll be hearing today in Port Harcourt saying, well, you have to restrict him because let those who have finished that process be the one to participate. And people will think, wait a minute, laymen.
Actually, that's not what the ruling says, but hey.
Which of them?
Port Harcourt. That's not quite what it says.
No, but Port Harcourt didn't stop the primaries.
No.
Port Harcourt is saying, look, the governor should not participate. That's what they are seeking.
Not quite. That's what they're seeking.
Yeah.
It may not necessarily be what they're getting.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Did they come out and say that's what they're getting?
Yes.
No, that's the prayer.
There you go.
The plaintiffs who have gone to court.
All right,
so
we're on the same page
then
again.
they just thought, wait a minute, don't the courts know any better? Because some of them won't even rule on this matter, on some of these matters until afterwards.
Well, again, I think that what we're looking at is an evolving situation. I think that INEC will probably come up with some regulations that will clarify things for us going forward. But here's the deal here. The Bar Association has complained and has self-policed in terms of, the use of technicalities, to frivolous, yes, and frivolous, litigation and things like that. Things will settle down Okay. I strongly believe that. I think that courts will become more aware of where they're being used to filibuster, as it were. Um, I, we're in a sausage factory and it's messy. That's the way I see this process. But it's a very necessary, a very important process.
But sorry, that this messy sausage factory is definitely confusing so many people.
But not the people of Edo State. This is the amazing thing. I have never seen anything like this. I think we've seen what a good governor looks like. You know, if you ask the people in the street, you know, why do you want this guy for another 4 years? The governor, they work. The man, they work. What's the other thing they say? He's not proud. You know, they carry camera about. They're not, they follow him about. No, they use siren up and down. People are beginning to define what they want in a good governor, what they want from good governance. They've got their priorities. I think the biggest mistake we could make is to underestimate the people's expertise and what's good for them. People know what's good for them. And so they do not want to leave certainty for uncertainty. So what you've got here is, look, he's not Mr. Universe, he's not Father Christmas. He's a damn good governor, and they want to keep him.
What's certain, what's uncertain?
Well, I think the political parties are going through a phase of maturation. You know what they say about, there's setup, and then there's breakdown, then there's, it's an iterative process. I hope that PDP can get its house in order, because, APC is entirely shambolic right now. So it's just off the charts. So I hope that PDP can get its house in order, so that the business of real governance, not just the business of partisan politics, the business of real governance can pick up steam again.
Are the professionals throwing their weights behind the PDP?
We're throwing our weight behind Obaseki, to be honest. If he had gone to SDP, we'd still be behind him. We want delivery, and he's given us that. And he still gives the promise of that. So that's what we want.
But isn't it obvious now that it is beyond what he's given? Because right now, he's not sorted it out within the PDP yet. And those who would have thought, they thought that by now.
Do you really think he would have jumped ship and gone to a sinking boat? Does he strike you as that
right
kind of
now, we still have two candidates who are insisting, you're not just going to come in from the APC, you be the governor, the deputy from
it's a negotiation.
B, and then they thought that by now, he shouldn't be having problems. Is it, 3 or 4, or with some of the candidates? All of this should have been sorted by now.
Well, you know what? The stakes are high, and the stakes are low. If it's about I, me, and myself, that you're a pretty low stakeholder. You are in that first Greek category of idiot, right? If it is about, can PDP join the other states and create a South-South bloc? Okay, so let's take this to a slightly higher level of analysis. This country needs restructuring. That's a given. I heard an earlier segment where some people were talking about decentralizing the safety and security apparatus. So I think what we're seeing is a devolution, not necessarily by stealth because it's pretty loud, but a devolution that is unregulated right now. It's happening organically, okay? So these parties, these politicians, there's a sifting and a shaking going on. It's very uncomfortable, but as far as the people on the ground are concerned, we the people, ordinary guys and gals on the street, we want Obaseki.
If you
it's very simple. It's not complicated.
Okay. Now, something you said the other time about the sad dichotomy of politics and
professionalism. Exactly.
Professionalism. How difficult or otherwise is it for Edo professionals to dichotomize that in this matter?
Well, in government, in our current governor, we have a happy marriage of the two. An incredible professional background, who's always been politically savvy, politically aware, politically engaged, politically involved, perhaps not at the level of party membership. I don't carry a party card, but boy, do I understand what's going on, okay? So, and I'm very committed to what's going on in my own country, particularly in my own state, because I've always felt, and I think our conviction as a group of professionals is that if we can figure it out in the Midwest, Bendel, Edo, whatever you want to call it, we can figure it out in this triune, because you do know that we've got Edo North, Edo Central, and Edo South. And even though we're all cousins, we're all related, we all speak one root language and dialects the same, but we are different people. And we have very specific needs. We have peculiarities, okay? And yet we're making this work. I mean, people have complained that why are Izeyamu and Obaseki and Wedehama quarreling? They're all Bini boys. It's fantastic that it's not about being a Bini boy.
But you know, if he was that political savvy, Mr. Baseki, as you say, why did he participate in the process knowing that he was not going to be favored and then got himself disqualified, kicked out of the party?
I think he's someone who was very committed to APC as it might have been. And many of us were sort of like prodding and nudging that, you know what, in December, as far back as December, which in political terms is far back, even though it's just 6 months ago, right? Shouldn't you, because you could feel the intransigence and you could feel the vendetta and you know, basically the confusion. I mean, look at APC now. Who's the leader? I mean,
well, you know, this is politics. A lot can change in less than 24 hours.
But for the process that they should be managing now, that they should have been anticipating, they needed to get their house in order. They failed woefully at that.
What do you say to those who think, first of all, the governor came in with the support of the chairman of the party at the national level, former governor. They used all of those, whatever it is they used, supported him and brought him to power. And then you get into office, whatever disagreement it is, something that's been self-righteous. Because if that happened, why did you turn back and say, no, you won't do it?
Well, Oshomole came from somewhere. We even, the Edo professionals, actually promoted Oshomole.
Oh.
Yes. So,
Okay.
you know, you've got to have a historical perspective on this. And he did a pretty good job. He's very smart. Oshomole is very smart. What's sad about Oshomole is that he can't rise above his Beza self. This is my own personal opinion. I don't know the man. I've met him once or twice. But it just seems to me that we've lost some genius in the way that he conducts himself. So he was introduced to the political arena by Edo professionals who felt that with his labor background, you know, he'd be able to parley his way, to negotiate his way out of the path of godfathers and godfatherism. And we gave him 100% support in doing that. Godwin was actually the ambassador of the Edo professionals group, giving him full-time support, pro bono, for his economic and strategy plans.
I know we need to go on this, but okay, guys, let's just take a minute and come back and sort this out. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's our concluding moments now. And yes, there will be that court case that they'll hear today. The primary is scheduled for tomorrow. So, I mean, what happens if the court case is not vacated today?
Well, you know, there's another parallel court case which has said he can participate in the primaries.
So does that mean that whatever happens in Port Harcourt, the one in Benin will invalidate that?
I believe so, yes.
Well, because INEC is saying that they will only obey judgments from properly constituted courts. I don't know
Please
what
give
that
me a
means.
break. Do we have any improperly constituted courts in Nigeria? Yeah.
So what do you say to people who want to get into politics to bring in fresh air?
You mean professionals?
Professionals, yes. Professionals,
So
thank you.
okay.
What would you say to those who want to get in but see all this murk and they're wondering, how do I step in this?
Well, it's not a walk in the park. I mean, we're building a democracy here, which is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you're a total neophyte who's never had to be involved in any contestation, You've never run for anything before. You know nothing at all about political theory, etc., etc. For where Nigeria is going now, you know nothing about its history. I'd say, you know, take a breather and, you know, and then try and understand what's happening where and who's happening where. It will always be murky. Can it be less murky? I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go. Mrs. Julie Odigio, member of Edo Professionals. Thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Mapa, you can go ahead. Let's have the first messages of the feedback.
Oh, yes, we do have people who are writing to us about the security considerations in the country. Alabi Michael says, point raised by Mr. Ejiofor identifies economic and political issues undermining effective security operations in Nigeria, making it imperative to have a total overhaul of our current economic and political structure with renewed policy on national development. And this one from Professor Imonoka Enakena says, recall our policemen acting as glorified houseboys for money bags and politicians. Some of our politicians have over 10 policemen for their wives, children, and gatemen. If the police force are funded properly, the urge to lend their officers for some honorarium will stop.
Okay, well, look at this one too, coming through from Babatunde Shonibare. He says that, I wonder what kind of pact Mbuari signed with these service chiefs. It's apparent they have outlived their usefulness. They are at the end of their waits, or their waits end rather. They are, okay, why is it so difficult to change people you appointed? Is this the best we can get among several qualified officers, he thinks?
Oh, well, take a look at this mail from Babajide Akiremi saying that no sector of a country exists in isolation. They are all a product of one society. He goes on to say the Nigerian structure is faulty, not just the military. That's what he believes. In the last 40 years, we have no good result to show in power, road, transportation, food security, technology, security, etc. And he goes on to say, why do our leaders insist on burying their heads in the ground to something obvious?
Victor says every single time the two main political parties go about their political magic, they always say, this is a litmus test for our democracy, and then repeat the test again. Can they just do the right thing and stop the abracadabra? He must have seen a lot of Professor Pella in his day.
This is chemistry, no magic, really.
Well, do they use abracadabra in chemistry as well?
Right.
I don't think so.
What, political scientists now? Or what?
You know, it makes sense now.
Or chemistry.
Or magicians.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kaido Kikyolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Please do stay safe.
And thank you for your feedback. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.